Multilinguals, what's your they didn't realize I could understand their language story? I'm born to Russian immigrants. Whenever my family and I travel abroad, we almost exclusively speak Russian and tend to get better attitudes from people when they don't think we are American tourists. When I was 12 or so, we were in a cafe in Belgium and a large group of 20-something guys walk in. My dad gets a worried look on his face, drops his voice, and says we are Americans right now. He explained to me later that they were Chechen gang members at the time when Chechnya was at war with Russia and anti-Russian sentiments were extremely high. Remember, no Russian. Sorry. Don't be sorry. That was exactly what I was thinking about when I wrote this. I don't understand. Where is that line from? It's from MW2, Call of Duty, Modern Warfare 2. The mission where you have to kill everyone in the airport. Edit. Clarification. Well, I mean, you don't have to kill anyone, but the group you're with does it, whether or not you fire a single shot. The game, however, does not tell you that you have the option not to kill anyone, does not discourage it, and does not penalize you for doing it, so it's pretty much a given that most players will do it. Happened to my wife when she worked at McDonald's. She looks a little on the Asian side, but is from Guatemala. Group of Spanish speaking people pay at the drive-thru and try shortchanging her. Driver says he's Malta to China, no safe can't to that damn Asian lady can't count. Wife takes the money and very politely says they are short in Spanish. Driver turns red while passengers couldn't stop laughing. When I was in Romania, as a Hungarian, I went to buy some food in a small town. I didn't know people in the restaurant were ethnic Hungarians, so when I asked for my food in English, the guy shouted a burger for this F***cker in Hungarian to the kitchen. I was curious how it would end, so I pretended I didn't understand. When he got me my food and asked for double the price, I said, now in Hungarian, look, dude, you can give me that for normal price, or I'm leaving it, but I sure as hell ain't coming back to UMFS ever again. Edit. Thank you for the silver, fellow Reddit user. You'd think they would recognize the accent. I've posted this on other threads before, but I think it fits here. I lived in Japan when I was little and retook Japanese in college, so I didn't sound like a child when I spoke. To solidify my new language skills, I went to my hometown for about 6 weeks a summer in college. It was a small town, so most people remembered me or my family, but some people I stayed with, 6 weeks, 11 families that at least wanted me to spend a night in their home, were new to the area, since we left 15 years or so earlier. One of these families had a high school aged son who wanted to borrow me for his high school's international festival. No problem. I'd go and let other high schoolers practice their English with me and do carnival games and stuff. However, the guy apparently did not get the message that I spoke Japanese and proceeded to introduce me to all his friends as his girlfriend. I'll let him have his moment for the night without leading him on, but on the train ride back to his home, he was talking to his friend in Japanese, and I joined in on the conversation. Also in Japanese. The embarrassment on his face was worth knowing all his friends thought I was his girlfriend. You're way too kind. I'm not sure I could have done it without screwing with him a whole lot. Either that or laughing every time you got introduced. Man, I figure high school is hard enough without making this guy, who basically had the cliche my girlfriend in Canada who's totally real, and probably not a whole lot of self-confidence, life worse. I did enjoy the minor screwing with him at the end of the night, when I basically revealed I knew exactly what he was doing. You are a kind person, and that shows a remarkable amount of perspective given the ages and circumstance involved. I was a Mexican living in Germany with a Chinese school assigned roommate. He claimed to not speak any English and my German wasn't good, so we weren't able to communicate. My German roommates then claimed he told them he didn't speak any German, so I gather he was antisocial. I took 3 years of Mandarin in high school, but I didn't try using it on him. About 3 months in, he and another Chinese student got off the bus at the same stop I did, and we all walked together to our flat. Heard him talking about me and his friend laughing but held back. Once we got to our flat, I opened the door and told them to please enter in Chinese. I still remember his shocked face. His friend later complimented my Chinese, while a few weeks later my roommate claimed my Chinese was so bad that he couldn't understand me. I seriously think he just wanted no contact with me. Possibly because he never followed the cleaning schedule. Sounds like the guy was an asshole and was using any excuse he could to be one. I seriously think he just wanted no contact with me. Possibly because he never followed the cleaning schedule. I think this is a common tactic. I have to deal with a lot of tenants that have English as their second language. Whenever rent or inspections are past due, up goes the language barrier. I used to work retail. The amount of people who suddenly didn't understand English when I couldn't take their return, but spoke it fluently when using coupons was really amazing. Being selectively bilingual was an impressive talent. FCK, I hated that job, and it made me hate humanity. I'll try to simplify this for non-poker players, but just know that 8 beat 7s. I was in Detroit and playing cards for a little higher stakes than I'm used to, and this obnoxious group of Lebanese guys come to throw their money around. They weren't good at all, just bet big and bluffed a lot. I took a stand with pocket eights and ran into a flop of 4-10 jewel rainbow. I called a big preflop raise of $50, 4 ways, and you shoves all in for $450 more. Everyone folded around to me, and I think for a bit. His friend asked what he has against the rules, in Arabic, against another rule, and he answers Saba Saba, which means 7 to 7. I look up and say call and tell him shukran, thank you, in Arabic. I'm Asian, so it was obviously unexpected. The table erupts in laughter and he actually was a good sport about it. He got roasted by his friends for the rest of the night and most of the people there just ended up taking their money anyway. Edit. Yes, I still got jargon Y in the middle, but poker players always want context. No, the 7 didn't come. No flush. No straight. I learned Arabic living in Detroit and working in Dearborn Heights, the highest population density of Middle Eastern people outside of the Middle East. Also, I guess I could have kept taking advantage of knowing the language, but they were being magnoon and pissing off the dealers already, so it was sweet justice. Read another story like this on another thread about Asian people in the US who were trying to cheat another player out of the game. Dealer immediately told them in their own language that if she caught them trying to cheat again then they'd be kicked from the game without their money. My husband grew up in multiple countries, and, though his English is pretty heavily accented, it's a sort of unidentifiable hybrid of all the countries where he learned it in school. He didn't move to the US until he was in his late 20s. When we went for our wedding rings, and in walks super white me and my very Latino looking, then, Finna K. It's a tiny little shop and the two proprietors begin to talk amongst themselves in Hebrew, one of my husband's first languages, about how much they should charge. The first says, it should be at least $650. The second says, tell him it will be $700 at least, maybe $750. I can try that. My husband says, in Hebrew, but with a smile, I'll give you $500. They just froze, and everyone laughed, and we went into a more open negotiation. We paid $600 and I think everyone was happy. I live in Austria, but my dad is from Brazil. All my Austrian aunts and uncles married a Brazilian. My grandparents from my mother's side opened and lead a factory of our family company in Brazil. That's why everyone was there, but some eventually came back to Austria, just like my mom with my dad. Me and my siblings were raised multilingual, but lived most of our life in Austria. So once when I was around 10 my mom and me were on a tram in Vienna with my little brother, who was around 2 at the time. in a stroller, and he starts crying really loudly. Then one Brazilian lady starts speaking really loudly and in an obnoxious tone something in the lines of, "Well, these European folks don't know how to treat their children with love. How can someone be so cold and unaffectionate to a child as to let them scream without taking them out of the stroller and holding them?" We were standing BTW. There was no seat big enough at the time where we could leave the stroller, so I was getting worried we were doing something wrong. I wanted to comfort my brother and get him out, but my mom stopped me and really loudly said in Portuguese, "Leave him. It is too dangerous to take him out of the stroller while we are standing here and the tram is moving." You could see the woman's face go from red to white and back to red, get up and get out so fast at the next exit that we just started laughing, and my brother ultimately calmed down. Not really exciting, but I find it funny when I think back. I was in New York and entered one of those electronics stores. I asked the price of an item in English. The guy at the counter turns to another guy who on a ladder stocking items and asks in Hebrew how much he should charge. I speak Hebrew, so I'm following their dialogue. The guy on the ladder looks at me and notices that I'm following them with my eyes. Then he switches to Arabic. I don't speak Arabic. The counter guy tells me the price in English. I say too expensive in Hebrew and leave. Edit. No, it was not B&H. It was a generic electronics store that sells overpriced goods to foreign tourists that don't have time to shop around. My wife is Indian and her family speaks Gujarati. I've spent many years trying to pick it up and have found it to be very difficult as there are no great resources that I'm aware of to learn it. You just have to listen and try to guess the context. Anyway, over the years I've gotten pretty good, and when my wife's aunt was visiting from India she went right into my wife about how much weight I'd gained and how bad my diet must be. I understood every word and stopped her about 2 minutes into her rant. Turns out it didn't stop her from continuing. I've said this before. It happened a while ago. I went to a psychiatric emergency ward once and asked for help and if they were comfortable to speak English. I understand Danish, but have a hard time making myself understandable in it and didn't really feel like an idiot at a crucial time of my life. I stayed there for 4 days without anyone realizing I knew what they were saying about me right in front of me. 2 of the nurses thought I was cute. 1 doctor thought I was lying all the time. A patient thought I was a spy for the staff. A lot happened in those 4 days. It made my stay way more enjoyable than it should have been.